Speaking of prime ministers, our first item, it's in your postal code, Sheila.
I love this. Well,
Daniel.
it's not in my postal code, but it is in my area code, I suppose.
Okay.
Uh, Premier Danielle Smith met with Mark Carney. Now, the timing is excellent here because the day before, she put all oil and gas facilities under the Critical Infrastructure Defense Act, which meant that if federal inspectors came in looking for emissions data, because we have absolutely no intent to comply with the emissions cap. In fact, Danielle Smith said, actually, not only are we not going to comply with your emissions cap, which is a production cap, but we're going to double production. And if you try to enforce the emissions cap, because we're not turning over the data, and you send federal inspectors into oil and gas facilities, we consider them critical infrastructure. So that is trespassing on critical infrastructure, which is next level in Alberta. And they'll be trespassed, charged, on and on and on. So that's what she said yesterday or 2 days ago. And if the feds really want to fight, we'll invoke the Sovereignty Act on them to make sure that they stay in their lane, because natural resources, particularly non-renewable natural resources, fall strictly within provincial purview. So Mark Carney shows up in town one day after we say we're going to criminally charge federal inspectors if they show up looking for emissions data. Mark Carney skulks into town like a weasel. By the way, missing a completely open net in his morning skate with the Oilers. I don't know if you saw that. Net zero, as the joke was on the internet. Danielle Smith, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, oh God. Oilers, do you think this flies well in Alberta? Do you think this bodes well? I mean, I get he's the prime minister, so fine. But they could have just let him come for a skate. They didn't need to do the big promotional nonsense.
Sheila, flies well in Alberta. Front page of the Toronto Sun today. Carney in his Edmonton Oilers
Power play.
swag on the ice. First of all, there's always significance in things, and I'm looking at the number he's wearing, 24. Really shouldn't
they didn't show him missing the open net.
Oh, isn't that selective
isn't that
editing?
Funny?
Well,
Yeah.
but why 24? Shouldn't it be 25? We're in the calendar year 2025. Also, Mr. Carney is an old gumper. Why isn't he wearing goalie gear? Why not parlay that into a photo op and have a shooter dressed up in a Donald Trump mask, and he's like deflecting the shots and making stick saves and glove saves and whatnot. Especially since, as you adroitly pointed out, Sheila Gunn-Reid, he can't hit an empty net. That is, I got to look at that footage again. But, I just want to read the opening statement of Danielle Smith's statement. And it's this, quote, "At his request, I met with Prime Minister Mark Carney. We had a very frank discussion in which I made it clear that Albertans will no longer tolerate the way we've been treated by the federal Liberals over the past 10 years. End quote. You know what the most amazing thing of that statement is, Sheila? And this is why the more I get to know Danielle Smith, the more I get to love her. She's savvy. She's strong. I have never in my life seen a premier begin a statement of a meeting with a prime minister with the three words, "at his request."
Yeah.
That is significant. It's not that the prime minister and I sat down for a cup of tea and had a great meeting. No. She is intimating that I didn't go to seek this guy's input. He came to me. I think that's a political win for Danielle Smith, Sheila.
Look at this, though. She thought, okay, since he's in town, let's put him on notice, because she quite literally put the feds on legal notice the day before, because we're already fighting the emissions cap in court. But even if they choose to pursue imposing the emissions cap on Alberta, she said, no, well, we'll just arrest you. That's fine. But let's read the rest of her statement. And actually, at the end of her press conference, she said, we'd like to talk, but we could do it your way, too. She said she's sent a list of specific demands that the Prime Minister must address in an unprecedented national unity crisis. This includes guaranteeing Alberta full access to oil and gas corridors to the north, east, and west, repealing the No New Pipelines Act, lifting the tanker ban, eliminating the oil and gas emissions cap, which of course is a production cap, scrapping the so-called clean electricity regulations, ending the prohibition on single-use plastics, because we already won that court battle, but they still won't take them off the Schedule 1 toxins list, along with, if you can believe it, mercury, asbestos, and lead, abandoning the net zero car mandate, returning oversight of the industrial carbon tax to the provinces, halting the federal censorship of energy companies, because they are censoring energy companies telling the good news stories of the oil and gas sector through a clause that is under the purview of the Competition Bureau. It's under Truth in Advertising or whatever. So yeah, she put him on notice, and then his response he skulked into town. She dropped the hammer on him the day before, which was pretty funny. And he said, I met with Premier Smith in my hometown of Edmonton today. I had no idea that this was what he described as his hometown until he started campaigning. He said, Canada is fighting for our workers and our businesses. His government is focused on working with provinces and territories. He didn't actually mention any of the things that she talked about, except for new energy corridors and new trade routes with reliable partners and one Canadian economy. So he touched on the new energy corridors, but she was very specific about what they needed to be and which direction they were going, not one that could allow specific provinces to veto these energy corridors, like what Carney said that he would give to Quebec specifically.
So, Sheila, do we have any clarity where Mr. Carney stands on this? Because he's wearing the Captain Canuck costume and wrapping himself in the maple leaf, and he's saying things that, developing other markets. Oh, and by the way, can we eliminate the interprovincial trade barriers, which they've been talking about, since Confederation. But here's the deal. As you know, his predecessor, Blackface, turned down the likes of Japan, Germany,
twice,
Greece. In terms of $1 trillion worth of liquefied natural gas. I understand Japan just signed such a contract with the U.S. For that liquefied natural gas. Do we have any clarity if it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss, when it comes to Mark Carney? Does he also turn down European nations that are begging for our energy, especially since he says we're the most European nation that's not actually part of Europe? Do you know what the answer is there, Sheila?
Well, did he come home from Europe just now where he burned 250,000 liters of fuel? Did he come home with a trade deal? Like, he went there to apparently shore up our relationship with the Europeans, with whom we do like a statistical rounding error of trade with. Did he come home with a trade deal? He could have went over there and said, hey, we're trying to sell you a bunch of liquefied natural gas. Would you take it? He came home with nothing. He went over there to do a hello tour after Justin Trudeau just did a big goodbye tour and came home with nothing, not even any real photo ops. He met with the king, which I think he should. He's the Canadian Prime Minister. But it's not the best look to go there and just do a hey, it's me, Mark, I'm back and I'm better than ever, and actually have nothing to show for it when we have real burning trade issues with the Americans and China. And he decided to just go on the popularity tour of Europe.
Olivia, can we show that picture again of Mark Carney meeting with the king? Because I have a question for you, Sheila. Let's see. There you go. Is that the king's place, or is it Mark Carney's luxury hotel?
How would you know? How would you ever know? How would you ever know? Given his expense scandal last time he was on the public taxpayer dime in the UK, $300,000 in expenses in £300,000 worth of expenses in just 2 years. And he already had taxpayer funded residence as the head of the Bank of England. His wife was complaining about how they had to live so small when they were there. The gall of these people.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.